Hello, everybody, and welcome to Incorporating Sustainability into Your Classroom, presenting to you from Orange Audubon Society. I am Kathy Rigling, the Education Coordinator. Thank you for joining us. The mission of Orange Audubon Society is to promote public understanding of and interest in wildlife and the environment that supports it. So what do you think of when you hear the word sustainability? Do you think about being green or recycling or conservation or protecting endangered species? Do you think about environmental education or do you think about organic food? Or do you think about quality of life for your family and families in the future? About clean air and water, affordable housing, safe neighborhoods, natural spaces, good schools, and affordable energy. So one definition of sustainability from the Brundtland Report of 1987 is meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So there are three pillars of sustainability: society, economy, and the environment. So sustainability means protecting and developing our environmental resources, our social resources, and our economic resources. It takes a long-term view, planning ahead to create the conditions conducive to happy, healthy, safe lives, and making trade-offs to ensure the best possible quality of life now and in the future. So here's an example with energy. So the pillar for environment, we think about what energy source is the most damaging to Earth's health, to land, animals, plants. For economy, which energy source do we use right now? Which makes it easy to continue using? And which ones are cheaper in the long run? Which require an investment in new technology or infrastructure? For society, which energy sources create jobs for people? Which is the healthiest? Which energy sources are safe for people who work to produce the energy or who live near the sources of energy production? It goes pretty deep. You have to think of a lot of different things. So if you're thinking about studying energy in your classroom, whatever grade level, so for science, you could look at where does energy come from that we use every day? How is it generated? For social studies, you can look at how do we use energy in our classroom? How can we reduce our energy consumption? For math, you could look at how much does energy cost? How much could we save with technological solutions or changes to our behavior? And for language arts, how might you persuade people to reduce their energy usage? So you can see this is a multidisciplinary approach that you could cover lots of different things with this one theme. One thing you could do in your classroom, and you can find these online, is you could conduct an energy audit in your classroom. And if you are a green school, that's something that actually can help you in your application to be a green school. Plus, it's going to help your school in the long run to save energy and save money. So that's definitely something worth looking into. Now, here's some examples of lessons that came from Arizona, of activities and lessons and projects that tie in with energy, such as if you have younger students, they could write songs about responsible energy usage, or students could imagine an ideal energy future for the school. Or perhaps they could maybe even look at, if they're older students, installing solar panels. So those are just some sample activities. Now think about putting the three pillars together. So have your students think about salsa. So the pillar of the environment, they think about, well, where was the food grown that goes into making salsa? Did the growing of the food cause pollution or erosion? Was it shipped from far away? So what was the carbon footprint of getting the tomatoes and the peppers to you? For economy, how much does it cost to produce the salsa? For society, did the people who grew the salsa or the food that's in the salsa work in a safe and healthy environment? Is it healthy to eat salsa? And then, you can go deeper. What about the jar? What about the lid? Here's some other ideas for class and school projects, just little springboards for you. Teach the 5 R's. Now, most people know the 4 R's, but you know that there's some new R's. So it's refuse. So like refuse to use that plastic bag at the store. Reduce your use of things like water. Reuse things that you can. Recycle things that are appropriately recyclable. And the newest R is rot, about things that are natural, that you can create a compost pile. We can let it rot and go back into the earth. Make recycling part of your classroom culture. So even if your school doesn't require it, maybe there's ways that you can have them recycle different things. And I believe Staples actually might provide your school with a container or something that there's certain things you can recycle to send to Staples. There's a lot of options for that. If you're permitted, your school can create a compost pile, and your students can learn about reducing food waste, and they can learn about the natural systems of recycling, fruit and vegetable scraps. I know one school that couldn't do a compost pile, but they found local pig farmers that are willing to take those vegetable scraps and use them with their pigs. That's great. For your students, raise awareness about food waste and alternative ways to pack lunch. So your students that get their school lunch, talk to them about just taking what they're going to eat. And some schools do have share tables. It's different in different places, but that's another thing to raise awareness of. And have them, if they bring their lunch from home, maybe encourage their family to find reusable containers like those shown in this picture. Have them learn about food production, food insecurity, and hunger, and how that all relates. Use environmentally friendly classroom supplies. So this is becoming more prevalent. Did you know that there are refillable whiteboard markers? Because a lot of schools use whiteboards. There's now a new company, it's called Wisdom Supply, and they sell plastic-free notebooks, so they don't have the little spiral things in them anymore. They have plastic-free pencils. So this field of supplies is starting to grow. So I know it might be cost prohibitive, but it's something you might want to consider looking into. Teach and practice water conservation. So here's the 5 R's of water conservation: reduce water waste, reuse, use water when appropriate, recharge to groundwater. So make sure there's places on campus that water can flow back into the ground, recycle wastewater when appropriate, and teach your students to respect water. Don't throw things into the lake. And, the more they can value that, the better for all of us. They'll learn about the water cycle and the water energy nexus, which is thinking about how much water it takes to produce energy. That's a whole nother thing. Encourage your parents to donate things that you can upcycle in your classroom. So maybe you're doing bird feeders and they can provide, old wooden utensils or water bottles. So we don't want to encourage water bottles, but if they have them, maybe you could, upcycle them, books and things like that, toys that are still usable. Participate in community science projects. Now, our last webinar was about counting birds for science. So when your students do community science projects such as eBird or the Great Backyard Bird Count, they're contributing and they're helping the researchers learn about what wildlife is in your area. And in turn, your students are learning about the scientific process by actually doing the scientific process. And we do have videos about this on our YouTube. And next month, actually, we're doing a webinar on the Great Backyard Bird Count and how to actually participate. So be sure to check that out. Plant native plants in your schoolyard. This is an easy thing you can do, and you can start small. It could just be one little place in your schoolyard. And then as that takes hold, your school is going to get excited about doing more of that. We are going to have a webinar in March on improving your school habitat with lots of tips on what to do. In doing native plant gardening, you're going to learn about urban ecology and the Homegrown National Park, which we'll talk about in that webinar. Audubon Society's Plants for Birds efforts are one great way. Without even watching that webinar, you can go to this website and you can look up what native plants are appropriate for you live, where to find them, and what birds and or insects they'll attract. So that's a good thing to check out. So I hope you enjoyed our very quick tour of sustainability resources and just gave you just a little idea of some things you can do. And, reach out to other schools, look for green schools in your area and see what they're doing and share. That's how we're going to make a difference. We will have our next webinar on participating in the Great Backyard Bird Count, February the 7th. It's going to be a lot of fun. Join us for that. And if you need to reach out to me for questions, or if you watch this on YouTube or you watched it tonight, if you will email me, I'll provide you a certificate of participation. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll need to write me a paragraph about what you learned from this so I know that you joined. So thank you again for joining us for sustainability. Thank you for everything that you do at schools to make your school a more sustainable place, and hope to see you soon for our next webinar. Thank you for joining us. All right, I just got to stop there. Okay. All right, let me see how to stop this. Deborah will be able to take this off. I'm on Zoom. Come on, Zoom. Let me see what happens here.